Welcome back to the Balancing Act podcast. I'm Andy Temte. On the Balancing Act, we talk to business leaders and industry experts to explore the balancing acts we play in our professional lives and learn about the events that put rocket boosters behind their career success. Today, we have Anders Indset joining us. Anders is a Norwegian-born philosopher, a deep tech investor, and a former top athlete in the sport of handball, which we may get to discuss later in the show. He's been recognized by Thinkers 50 as one of the leading thinkers in technology and leadership. Anders is the author of multiple books, including The Singularity Paradox, which is coming up in early 2025, and most recently, The Viking Code. Welcome to the show, Anders.
Thank you so much for having me on, Andrew.
Yeah, so I ask all my guests this question before we really get started. Tell our listeners the short version of your story.
Yeah, as you said, I grew up in Norway, but I've spent the past 24 years in Germany, in Frankfurt, where I live with my family. We had a career as an athlete, as you also mentioned, and went into the business world, founded my first company when in the early 20s, and I set up a marketing communication agency. And then after that, I just felt like letting go of everything and have been reading a lot of German philosophy. And I saw how the leaders of the companies that I worked with, how they more and more turn into philosophical questions on the rapid change of things, the complexities, and also in relation to technology. So I started to write about that and give a lot of speeches around the world and just let go from the past career path that I've been on and explored the relationship between business and philosophy, which I think is today more relevant even than when I started this journey back 10, 12, 20 years ago. So that's the short version of it. Grew up in a small town in Norway where we had a really, really cold winter and wonderful summers. Typical traditional Norwegian house home, as you might picture it in a movie. That was my childhood. And now I spent most of the time traveling out of Germany. So that's been the quick career path of Anders so far.
Very good. So also one event in your life that was an accelerant for your career, just that tipping point moment, what would that be?
Yeah, most people that would see me would see that there must have been something radical because you were like a hardcore capitalist. You were like all the structures and you were doing that path. And all of a sudden you dug a lot deeper into philosophy. So they think that it must be something pivotal. But I think it was the realization of that I also cover in the book, how you experience success. So when I was doing my career as an athlete or even building the companies that I also was involved with, I didn't feel success because it was always driven from the outside. It was an extrinsic motivation to reach finite goals. It wasn't until I realized that, today I would consider myself really successful for me, because I get up in the morning every single day and learn. I get to experience what I think is the most beautiful thing that we human beings have, progress. So this experience of your own experience of progress, that to me became, I would say, pretty much a big radical switch in how I operated and saw the world. And I think that point where I let go of things that does not define me, as in comparison to solely striving towards something that would define me or having a finite goal, became very fulfilling. And as I said before, today I consider that success because I have the privilege to learn and experience that learning every single day. So that was probably started 15 years ago, and it just continued in a very slow transition. And I am very much still on the beginning of this journey.
Well, excellent. So I want many, many more people on this planet to be thinking like that. And so this interview, introducing you to our audience is really going to be important because many people are chasing a version of success that is not authentic to them at all. And it feels like, and this has happened to me, where it feels like a series of empty wins, right? You're just just chasing what ideals that other people put in front of you. So let's start the conversation with your book, The Viking Code. And I'm personally very interested in this because my dad's cousin gave our very Norwegian family the gift of 2 books tracing our roots back to the 1300s. So give us a bird's eye view of the primary tenets of the Viking Code.
Yeah, sure. I think, Andrew, that it's not, people will think about the barbarian Vikings and blood and fights, but I write about the modern Vikings. And growing up, to me, we were always told to only focus on the collective. The team was everything, and we should not believe in ourselves. It was not to go out and conquer the world. There was not that type of mentality. And somewhere around the early 2000s, there was a slight shift. So you saw it in major sport events, not the typical ones that Norwegians are good at, like skiing or biathlon, but like golf, soccer, tennis, running, all of these huge global events that all of a sudden these young men became really successful. And that has now manifested itself where my small home country does not really focus on high performance, all of a sudden have all these high performers, these individualists that are really successful in their disciplines. And that was very fascinating to me. So I wanted to understand what was the recipe behind that, why they became so successful. And by exploring that, I realized the narrative of the book, which was that they're not only successful as individuals, but they're also the most liked athletes. They practice fair play, team play. They uplift others, even though they are doing individual sports. And that, to me, was the whole narrative of the book, how to build a high-performance culture in today's society that is deeply rooted in values. How can you unite or even maximize individualism and collectivism? And that was the fascination that I wanted to dig into, and where the outcome of this Viking Code that I define is what you may consider success in terms of medals and money and fortune and fame, but the process, the input and the quality of the input, the incremental progress over time compounds into what many people would then consider success. And that was very fascinating to see that the journey, as you would look at from an Eastern philosophical standpoint, all of a sudden manifested itself in some of the most hard-fought sports on the planet, where there are millions of competitors. So that was the entrance point of the Viking Code. And in the second part of the book, I look at how that is applicable to business, politics, and education today, which is an underlying philosophy for the vitality of life, how to live an active life and to perform in the sense of taking action as in comparison to a reaction, which is exhausting. And I think I would see a lot of people today live off of solving tasks and fulfilling other people's goals and targets, right, which becomes very tiring.
Yeah. So it's the me and the we. And here in sitting here in the United States, we have a lot of me going on right now, and not enough, certainly not enough we. So that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. Another reason, you are a self-described business philosopher, and you're working to connect the dots between leadership and philosophy. Now, really throughout my career, I'm a blue sky thinker. I'm a big philosophical guy. I would get accused of being far too philosophical and not concrete enough in my thinking and approach. So just get to the numbers was the story. So, and there are many managers like that out there. So let's suppose you have a just get the work done, focus on the numbers leader in front of you right now. What do you say to them to open their minds to the importance of philosophy in business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And when I started out, it wasn't that evident that that was something that would lead to that we have today. So you use the term managers and leaders. So I like to distinguish between the two. So if you're a manager today, you are basically delegating, solving. You are all about the finitude of things. That has overnight become something that we today relate to as technology or AI, right? So the knowledge society and the finitude of answers, that is an optimization game. So we have maximized the art of being right, a binary way of looking at the world. So we are trying to solve questions with a finite answer. So, and the challenging part here is if we are only in that reaction mode and optimization game, we will miss out on the unknown and the actual progress of things. And due to the complexity of things and the speed that we have today, it is fundamental for businesses to anticipate potential future scenarios as in comparison to just solving tasks. Because if you're on a reaction mode today, given the speed of society, you might be heading down the wrong path. Traditionally, you could navigate and you could flip and you could learn, you can make mistakes. But today, the complexity and the speed is so high that you need to have that broader look. So I always showcase a couple of examples on how I anticipate future scenarios. And I basically just show the leaders that they are capable of seeing a plausible future that is right in front of their eyes if they just start to think. So we have a reactive society as in comparison to a society of reflection. And if we understand that it's not about solving problems or coming up with solutions, it's more about creating better problems. You understand the dynamism of things. Elon Musk refers to the first principle thinking as one of his core principles for building all these amazing technologies and moving the boundaries. And that is also very deeply rooted in philosophy, to ask the why questions, to get behind the evident rapid solution. So instead of having the perfect answer to the wrong question, I encourage to look for new questions and to dig deeper and to try to get the interwovenness and the complexities of the problem that it's that you're coping with. Because everything else, I think today is we are seeing it by the hour, is something we're going to leave over to technology. And if you're going to compete with technology as a human being, that's going to be a very difficult state to be in. So, yeah, I think there are many ways to approach this. We could touch upon the ethical, we can touch about the problem thinking, we can touch upon the paradoxes and the ambiguities that are all tables on all leadership boardrooms today. They are all highly philosophical. So there are many paths. So, to answer your question in short, it depends very much on the scenario and the leader in front of you, because they all have different types of tasks. But the easy entrance point is, and I'm a math guy, I'm all about plausibilities, and I'm a nerdy programmer by choice as a child. I loved playing with that. So, but today I see that this is something we hand over to technology, and I think that many leaders gets this today. So be it climate, ethics, meaning, activation of human beings to have a sense of belonging. There are so many aspects, and they are all a part of leadership today.
Yeah, this is going to be a really difficult shift for a lot of human beings to make, from firefighters who are just stamping out fires and are being reactive in their work. And if you wander the halls of any business, you see this play out over and over again. And to get people to think about leaving the certain things to technology so that they can work on higher order challenges, that's going to be a really big shift. It's going to take a lot of education. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. We are in front of when we could look in a retrospect and say we have been through rapid technological changes over the past decades. But it is nothing comparison to what is in front of us. The technological tsunami is now shaping and coming. And this is going to be a fundamental switch, how we see ourselves, how we live. And into relation to your question, one of the things that I'm writing about right now is how to avoid the philosophical zombie. So you have these people that are just, walking around and they're not tuned in. They're not there, right? So the lights are on, but there are no one home to perceive them. And if you live such a life, right, then it becomes very exhausting. And then we have to go on all kinds of sabbaticals or take some kind of drugs or, just try to reattach. But this is also what the Viking Code is all about, how to live a intrinsically motivated, active life. German has the word Lebendigkeit. It's a wonderful word that refers to the vitality of life, the experience of life itself, the wonders of normality. And that is basically about, going to work to do something and having the sense of agency that you have fulfilled the task from your intrinsically motivated activation as in comparison to just functioning. So there's a new kind of existentialism that is not about fighting death or escaping death, but to not get into a state of being what I call undead, which is terrible. It's just like that zombie state. It's not that it's bad per se because you don't perceive it, right? In the long term of things. But that is something that I'm seeing. So I agree with you 100%. We are in front of radical changes, how society function, and obviously in relation to work and how we live and do our jobs.
So many zombies walking the halls of corporations around the world, just checking that next box. Before we cut to a commercial break, I want to explore the concept of anxiety. So over the last few weeks, I've been writing about this really epidemic of anxiety that's racking, especially younger folks in our economies. How can the Viking Code help tamp down this epidemic of anxiety that's all around us?
Yeah, no, that's a first of all a very important topic, and I see it extremely prominent amongst young men today.
Yes.
And I think this is one of the bigger pandemic or crisis that we have to tackle on a societal level. The Viking Code takes up that topic in the sense that as I said before, the intrinsically motivated life. So if we look at history, never in any time in history did we have more potentiality to shape or influence our own reality. So in most Western civilization, at least, we have access to, these amazing technologies. We live in a world that has a lot of resources and we have a lot of time. We think we are do not have much time because everything feels so exhausting. But that is solely because we're doing too much stupid things. We're sucked into all these social media channels. Actually, if we look at how we work, the efficiency of traveling and how we operate, we have so much time. And there are a lot of self-help gurus that kind of recommend to slow down, but you cannot slow down if you have too much shit going on. So you have to detach some stuff. And that is what I said in the beginning of letting go. And that is coming down to the very essence of experience those things that you are doing. One thing I write about in the book is about being micro-ambitious. I write about micro-ambitions. And that is the essence of life to me. Everything is about compound interest, health, wealth, about being. And when you can focus on those small incremental changes and experience that progress, the small learning, the small wonder, the small things, there are a lot of thought about consciousness and awareness, but it's very simple to set just very small targets and goals that you get to do yourself and experience. And if you do that over time, you will have that compound effect. And that is like an athlete who goes out to run, 3 miles, 5 miles every single day. And it's all about that next step, getting down to that perfection of that. And that is, I'm all for big goals and visions. It's important, but it's also crucial to have the journey, the path. And that is about the micro ambitions. So I think the Viking Code can serve a very strong help for these young men to take back the agency of life and to take back that Lebendigkeit, the vitality, and to live a life where you fill your life in order to have a fulfilled life. So you take the action yourself to do and put things into life, and you give life a meaning, as in comparison just trying to struggle and figure out everything around you. And I think we have never been in a better position, at least theoretically, to take back that agency and to fill our life with things that we give meaning. So I hope the book can help.
Yeah, and so Anders and I are talking about right now about this epidemic of anxiety, and especially its impact on young men. There is a challenge globally, but especially in the United States, where young men feel lost. They don't feel like they've got a place. And we got to fix that. So the tenets of the Viking Code, they apply across genders, across cultures, but we don't talk about the challenges that young men are facing in our society enough, I think. So, Anders, thank you so much for taking us there. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on The Balancing Act. Hey, it's Andy here. I've got a new podcast I'd like to introduce you to, The Saturday Morning Muse. Start your weekend with me by exploring topics that span leadership, business management, education, and other musings that are designed to support your journey of personal and professional continuous improvement. Subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. And we're back with Anders Indset talking about the intersection between technology, business philosophy, and continuous improvement. Let's dive deeper into the concept of Dugnad in your book. Now, we talked about, you alluded to it earlier in the show, in the world of entertainment and media, especially here in the United States, shows like Vikings and Vikings Valhalla give viewers, especially those young men that we were talking about, that lack a little historical reference, give them the impression that Norwegians are self-serving and ruthlessly compete both amongst themselves and externally. Now, how, if we shift that narrative just a little bit, and it sounds like it's now the collective and it's the me plus the we, how can the Viking Code help leaders find an appropriate balance between driving hard for those business successes and supporting a sense of community and cooperation? A lot of people think that those are different things.
Yeah, that would be the obvious take. You can't do both, right? And that's why I think there is no balance as such. But it's the word Dugnad is basically built on volunteer work to do something for others without the work part. So it doesn't feel like, you just feel natural. And this came out of the small villages. And me growing up, it was like showing up for the others. So I had my team sport that we played, but I had to do all these other things. I had to, biathlon, cross-country skiing, soccer, because if I didn't show up for the other guys, I wouldn't have a team, right? And coming back to the business relation here, if you have an aspiration to grow as an individual, wouldn't you agree that you could practice at a higher level if everyone else around you would perform better? And this becomes very evident in sport. So you uplift the others so that you can rise even more. It becomes kind of sort of like a reinforcement learning model. But in businesses in particular, we think about hierarchies and moving at the cost of others, moving up the ladder. And I think this is the wrong way of looking at it, because we fought for knowledge, we fought for positions, but as things now become more transparent and even more intertwined with technology, it is about the leaders, and it's about, finding ways to change and to adapt. And that comes out of the essence of working with other people. I am because you are. I can only have a career in relation to other human beings. So I need the collective. So though the declaration of independence is important, today you would have to say we need a declaration of interdependence, where we commit to the collective. And as evident that this is in sport, it is also the same applies for business. So if you uplift the team and you surround yourself with some really, really smart people, you have the chance to grow. And as a collective, you can then have other forms of success also on a monetary level or time of achieving something that you couldn't if you kept others around you, smaller or didn't help them evolve. And this is with the Viking Code. It goes back traditionally to rowing those open boats over shore. It's all about the collective, right? But you see that in the sport where some of these athletes, these young men that we touched upon also before, that you see that they have a very strong relationship to their fathers or a mentor that serves as like a father. They have healthy relationship to their high school girlfriend before they got famous. I mean, obviously not perfect by all means, but there's a very strong like value codex that you could see with these high performers. And I think that comes out of that sense of, being in that unity of the collectivism as a foundation for your individual success. So the word Dugnad is as present in Norway as a Danish hygge that many might be aware of. We have hygge as well, the enjoyment and the fun. But the Dugnad is where everyone in Norway just get out and show up and help others and just do something. And that is about living an active life, that's getting into the unity of life, working with other people, and you still can have your individual journey within that. So it's not about finding that perfect balance, but it's actually kind of sort of serving both at the same time. So you serve the collective and you strive for individual achievements. And that is one very, very foundational part of the book that I write about.
Yeah. So historically and currently, there in many business settings, there's this mindset that for me to get ahead, I need to take that person out. That person's in my way. I've got to get rid of them. That's that ruthless nature. And so it sounds like your work is going to be beneficial in turning that on its head.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same in sport. I mean, if you want to be the striker of one of the, or if you want to play take a reference to American sports, if you want to be a starting five on a basketball team, you cannot go to practice and try to take down the others, right? That's not how it's going to work, because your team is not going to be successful. And if the team is not successful, they're going to replace the players with better players. So you're going to be a part of that downward spiral. So that you can see that functioning teams give birth to the strongest individuals. And it wasn't always like that. But if you look at the sports today, how they become driven by data, by technology and optimization, you maximize formation, tactics, and everything. And then what remains is how you can distinguish yourself from other teams is the unity. It's the nuances. It's what you cannot grasp. We can refer to that as culture. And that is in a functioning organization. And any organization today that does not have a functional culture, I would argue, are at risk of being taken down by technology and progress. So it becomes a fundamental part of organizations. I agree, there are many that does not understand and see that today, but I would argue that they are at risk of being replaced by companies that have cultures and use technology. So I think that we are up for a switch here, but it also takes some trust, most of all self-trust, to lean into that thought. Because, and that is, the thing you refer to, many managers today, they seem like they are strong, but their hierarchical structure and dominance is overplayed insecurity. They are completely insecure, and they cannot have that open, healthy conversation. They cannot say that, oh, you caught me off guard. I do not know this. I'm going to go home tonight. I'm going to put it into GBT. I'm going to learn and catch up, and we'll come back tomorrow and have that eye-to-eye conversation. And that is the foundation, I would argue, of trust and relationship. And that's the beginning of progress. Because if you can have that conversation, you can discuss and have various opinions that don't manifest in the ego, then you can have progress. So progress, to me, comes from two things. Friction, that we have different opinions, so we can move into the unknown, and trust. And those two parts is basically also a part of a functioning unit in sport. if you have trust in each other, you can run the place, and you can then do out of improvisation. You can generate friction. You can generate something magical beyond that is greater than the sum of its part. Then you can rise above, and then individual can strive. So as I said at the beginning, that the thinking of this philosophy of running an organization is kind of like a reinforcement learning model, where you keep putting into the collective, and you keep getting all this super performance out of the system. So that's the philosophy of the Viking Code, if you may.
Yeah. So great. Beating down imposter syndrome, getting folks to believe in themselves, their own capabilities, instead of all of this uncertainty and this feeling that I'm not enough, that manifests itself in the workplace as domineering, get the work done. I'm going to tell you what to do, and these unhealthy behaviors. Anders, we could continue this conversation, I think, for hours. We're going to have a little fun as we close out the show. I've got 2 lightning round questions for you. I give you access to a small time machine. You can send a message to an earlier version of Anders Indset. What's the message, and what previous version of yourself do you choose to send it to?
Yeah, I would probably go back to, I would say, somewhere between 16 and 18, 19, 20, where I would just go and, put that self-confidence and self-trust to try more and be more explorative, and go out and learn about the wonders of life. The journey of learning is the most beautiful and fulfilling that I can think of. So I would do that and encourage myself. You could obviously go back and invest in NVIDIA or whatever, in a couple of companies, but I think that would just make the life much better. So, basically the experience that I'm having over the past 10, 15 years, if I could have had that at an even earlier stage, that I think would be valuable as well.
Yeah. And we're all works in progress. What are you're a lifelong learner. What are you focused on right now in your personal journey of growth?
Yeah, I mean, to me, writing is thinking. I like writing. So, as you mentioned, I just finished the Singularity Paradox with my co-author, and that this book will be out early 2025, tackling bridging the gap between humanity and AI. It's a very different book than the Viking Code. So, if the Viking Code is a very mainstream or a broader book in sense of business and leadership and looking into technology, the Singularity Paradox takes on the implications of technological singularity, and we play with the whole notion of the divine creationism as the function of the intellect on the human being, where we human beings now become the creators of godlike technologies. So we move from a story of Genesis and creationism into a humane creationalism, as I describe it, where we hack biology and build these super intelligent entities, and all the paradoxes that rises with this type of thinking. If you think that through down the line, that we'll be confronted with a lot of interesting philosophical questions about meaning and our bodies, and about the finitude of life itself, and that's the book about. So I've been working a lot on that, and I'm writing quite a bit on consciousness at the moment. That is, to me, as we started off with this Lebendigkeit, the experience of your own experience, the qualia, as you would say in philosophy. That is a very important part of my work right now. And and I'm also back on putting my ideas into practice, investing in tech companies and following up on some portfolio companies. I like to see these type of thinking also within the organizations. And my investment strategy is basically also something I adapted from a Norwegian colleague. It's ROL as in comparison to ROI, the return on learning. So I like to invest in companies where I can learn something. So that, as you said, the foundation of my work is about learning and experience at that particular progress in all its full matters.
Anders, it's been fantastic having you on the show today. It's been wonderful to meet you and learn about your point of view. Where can individuals learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Andrew. AndersIndset.com is my website. Quite a bit of work that we're putting out there, of articles and stuff that I've written. We will also do some more video format coming up. And I'm also on LinkedIn. So if business leaders want to reach out, feel free to link it up with Anders Indset on LinkedIn. So those would be the main two sources.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Anders.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew.
All right. My name is Andy Temte. This is the Balancing Act podcast. You can find us on all the major streaming services. Please like, subscribe, rate, and most importantly, share this public good with your friends and your colleagues. Today's episode was particularly impactful. The show is produced by Nicholas Temte, and we'll see you next time on The Balancing Act.